All right. So I know that it's a bit of a disadvantage to you guys to be doing this remotely as opposed to in person. So the one thing that I can hopefully do for you is give you the recording so that if there's something that you missed because it was remote, you'll have the ability to go back and look at it again. So that being the case, this is finance. 9:30 in the morning, finance, almost as good as business law at 8 o'clock, right, guys? So let me take attendance real quick, see who is here. Emily Baker, you're here, right? All right, Matt Castles.
Here.
Man, Matt, twice in a row for me, huh?
I know.
Peyton Ennis.
I'm here.
Okay. Evan Gerber.
Here.
Okay, great. Travis Harvey.
Here.
Seiyun Huang.
Here.
Okay. Salem Kalen. Yes. Salem Kalen. Samlin. Gotcha. Yes, no? Say no. Haruta Kuroda.
Here.
Connor Lovick.
Here.
Okay. Destiny Merriweather.
Here.
Jeremy Meyer. I know he's in transit. Haley Phillips.
Here.
John Retton. No John today? Okay. Owen, is that you?
Yes.
Gosh, you haven't been in my class in a couple of years.
Yes.
When do you graduate? May?
Yep.
See, Owen just couldn't resist taking me one last time. I tell you, it's great. Appreciate that. Lucas Sadowski, you out there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there you are. All right, and Triana Wolford.
Here.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. What I want to do is I want to go over the syllabus, and let me go back to here and set this up so that I can share it. Boy, tell you what, trying to get good at this. And share. Okay, so here's the syllabus. It follows the format for those of you who have had me before. My office is AC 30, which is right down there in the basement of the academic building, next to Tony Cause and across from Melissa Oaks. Ordinarily, my office hours would be Mondays from 10:30 to 2:30, Tuesdays and Thursdays from noon to 1. Unfortunately, because I'm not on campus right now, office hours are not going to be possible, but I promise to be available to you. If you need anything, just send me an email. I will check my emails daily, and whatever type of situation or issue that we might have, we can certainly settle it up. If we need to do a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, we can certainly do that. But I am available to you. Just let me know that you need my attention. Classes will be in AC 40 when I get back onto campus, at least 9:30 to 10:50. I have a phone number there for my office number. I'm not there to take the calls, so that's kind of useless at the moment. There's my email. That's why I said the easiest way to get me. The text is Foundations of Financial Management by Block, Hurt, and Danielson. I can't see the edition because I have a portion of the Zoom in my way, but you can see that on your syllabus. Let's try this. All right, that works. What are we going to do? We're going to introduce you to the world of financial management of a business. Business World contains many methods of financing your business. This is going to design the students the many challenges involving in running a business, as well as give the student the tools necessary to properly analyze the performance of their company. The tools to be required are a better understanding of financial statements, forecasting, leveraging, calculation of present value, budgeting, and financing through either equity or debt. Course goals to obtain a working familiarity of financial reporting, financial analysis, forecasting, and budgeting. Or outcomes, let's see, at the end of the course, you should be able to do ratio analysis to evaluate a business, be able to forecast financial needs of a business using pro forma statements, understand the concept of leverage and how to apply it, understand the meaning of working capital and how to manage it, be able to calculate present value and understand the importance of this concept, solve budgeting problems, and understand the difference between debt financing and equity financing. Excuse me. What are we going to do during the semester? Well, there's going to be 4 tests, and we're going to have them each be worth 100 points. There will be several homework assignments. I have no idea how many I'm going to assign. But all of the assignments, when they are all together at the end of the semester, will have the weight of 2 exams. So however many assignments there will be, they will end up being worth 200 points in total. So you get full credit for all of the homeworks. You'll end up with another 200 points there. If you don't get full credit, it'll be allocated against that 200 points. There will be a report due at some point in the semester. Basically, I want you to find something in the media. In the old days, we would say, find a magazine article, but of course, you guys are going to find it on the internet, but just something from a financial publication. It can be about a person. So if you wanted to do, if somebody did a article on, let's say, Elon Musk, and you found that interesting, you could do that. Could be an article about the processes that a company is doing, or just something in the financial world. Just find an article and do a report on it. Shouldn't be an extraordinarily long article, a couple of pages to, no longer than like say 3 or 4 pages. That'll be worth another 100 points. And of course, there's always going to be some sort of a component for participation and attendance, and that'll be 50 points there. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 50. That's 750 points available for the semester. So I like to make sure there's lots of points out there so that everybody has a chance to get a good grade. Of course, that means there's a lot of work involved. So if you're willing to put in the work, you certainly have the opportunity to get a really good grade in this class. Attendance and participation. I really would prefer that you be in class when we have class. It's going to be to your advantage to take part in the discussions and to listen to the lectures. Of course, as I move forward on the syllabus here, we have the information, well, that's down a little bit further, but of course the school now has a attendance policy. And so I'm required to take attendance every day on Moodle. They look at Moodle and determine who's not going to class. And they, of course, have the opportunity to remove you from a class if you're not going to a class, or remove you from the school if you're not going to any of your classes. So I am required to take attendance. If you don't come to class, you'll end up getting those emails from Greg Butcher. Easiest way to solve this problem is just come to the class. You're paying to be here. I think you might actually even learn something. So yeah, let's not let that be a problem for us. The attendance and participation part of the class, like I said, there's 50 points that's available out there. I don't want it to be about attendance. I really want it to be about participation. I want it to be about how you were engaged in the class, and we had multiple conversations back and forth. Makeup tests. I believe that you should always have the opportunity to take every test if you have to miss a test for a legitimate reason, and a legitimate reason is not, oh, I forgot to study, so I'll just take it some other time. If you have, some reason you can't attend the test, then fine, just let me know. I'll make it possible for you to make it up at some other time. Homework is going to be submitted when I will post out on Moodle, and also announce in class when the various homework assignments are due, when the various other things are due, like the paper. When they're due, get them to me. There'll be a place for you to submit them in Moodle always. Please submit them before they're due, on the day that they're due, so that I don't have to be a bad guy and punish you for not doing the work. Just do the work. I designed my courses so that if you come to class, you take notes, you do the work, you get a good grade. That's just the way that I think it should be. I have on the screen right now just the breakdown. I think that's a pretty much normal breakdown as far as to how the grades go in this class. Accessibility, if you have any kind of an accessibility or accommodation that's necessary, we at Teal are more than happy to work with you to ensure your success. It's just that we ask that you do it through the proper channels. We have the Accessibility Resource Center, which is part of the TLC. And the person that you would need to talk to over there is a woman by the name of Erin Bain. She's a coordinator of accessibility at the Resource Center. And so if you have any particular needs that you need us to pay attention to, please talk to Erin so that we can get it started and we can start working with you so that everything works well. No, that's all still Zoom stuff from when this is a Zoom class. But like I said, if you need me, email me. We'll work out whatever we need. Attendance policy for the college. We talked about that a little bit. I would suggest you read it because it does affect you. Cell phone policy. Once again, we're not in the classroom today. We are remote, so I can't do much about your cell phones. When we're back in the classroom, I would just ask that you know, on here I say have your cell phone turned off, but the reality of it is that I like to point out that most of you are upperclassmen and you're probably all waiting for, you've been interviewing and trying to find the job. So for when you graduate, you'll be able to start making the money immediately. You're all waiting for that call with that offer telling you that somebody wants you to come work for them. I want you to be able to take that call. So you can have your cell phone. You can have your cell phone on. Don't have it out. Don't be playing games. Don't be texting. But if your phone rings, hopefully it's on vibrate and it's that call offering you that job. Take the call. Just leave the classroom. Don't be disruptive to the other students. Go out in the hall. Take the call. Dry there, and then come back in and tell us the good news. I like to try and do my classes as a seminar as opposed to a lecture. I know that when we're remote, it's probably going to be mostly lecture because people tend to want to hide behind the computer. But I do appreciate when people want to add something to the classroom discussion. Your input, your insights, and your points of view are sometimes extremely insightful and very helpful to not only yourself but the rest of the class. So I do welcome anybody that wants to participate and has anything to say. Please just jump right in. Grading. Those of you who've had me in the past, you know that my real big flaw is it takes me a while to get things graded when they're handed in. I'll do my best to get things done as quickly as I can. What this clause here says is that after I give you your grade, you got 7 days to argue with me about it if you want. Here's what we're going to do for the semester. Topic number 1, we're going to have the introduction today, which is basically the syllabus. And then we're going to start on chapters 1 and 2. It's going to take us a few classes to get through this. This is basically an accounting review and financial analysis. Okay, what does the finance person in the company do, and what are the tools? Then we'll have an exam on this that particular material, chapters 1 and 2. Topic number 2. It lists chapters 4 and 5, and I have forecasting and leverage there. We're also going to do a little bit of chapter 3 because chapter 3 is the analysis of ratios, and I do want to spend a little bit of time on ratios. So we'll be looking at financial statements quite a bit during that particular period of time. Then we'll have an exam on that material. Topic number 3 is going to be working capital and short-term financing, which is going to be chapters 6, 7, and 8. And then we'll have an exam after that material. Topic number 4 is capital budgeting, chapters 9, 10, and 12. And we'll have our 4th exam after that. I also have out here, if time permits, topic number 5, which is long-term financing, which is chapters 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Time has never permitted, so I don't expect to get there. But if for whatever reason we are able to just fly through the other material, we do have other things that we can be looking at. We won't just be sitting saying, well, no more classes because we finished the material. There's plenty of material. And then the final exam, of course, will be given according to the schedule that the school submits to us. For my purposes, I'm fully expecting exam number 4 to be the final. Those of you who have had me before in class, you know I'm not a big fan of comprehensive finals. So it'll probably just be on that last group of material, although I may throw a question or two in on other things. Of course, a lot of this material builds from one chapter to the next. So a lot of what we do at the beginning of the semester will be very involved in what we do at the end of the semester. So that's the end of the syllabus, I believe. Nothing after that. Nope, that's it. So I'll stop sharing. Nobody's trying to get into the, whoops. Okay. Huh. All right, how about this? Ah, there we go. All right. Any questions about the syllabus? Any questions about what you think the class is going to be about? Anything that you guys want to talk about before we start the material? Okay. If not, well, let's start talking about finance. What do you guys think that the finance director of a business does? What do you think the job is? Anybody? Owen, let's start with you.
No, putting me on the spot. I think finance director usually looks at obviously the finances of a company. And when I say finances of a company, I mean incoming, outgoing, cash, or items of monetary value. I would say like stocks or equity. And then they probably also look at their current debts and probably how to finance those debts, either from normal business operations or through loans. That's what I think a finance director mostly does.
That's actually a pretty good answer, Owen. Anybody else want to add anything else to that? Owen actually gave a very good answer there. Those are a lot of the different things. Let's just build on that and say, what do you think are the tools of the finance director? You know, what are the tools that he's going to use, he or she is going to use to help make those decisions and guide the company? You know, what kind of tools does he have? Travis, what do you think? What would be the tools?
Maybe like transaction records, any sort of like asset books that they would have. They would be basing all of their records off of those.
Yeah, who gives those things to the finance director?
I would assume like the purchasing department would be like in charge of like all of like their assets that they would be purchasing, and then
more general answer, the accountants, right?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, the accountants. You know, we're going to start. This is the class that I teach, where we actually look at the work that the accountants do and use it. You know, so in reality, all of those things that Owen was talking about that the finance director is doing, he's using the tools that are given to him. Excuse me, he's using the tools that are given to him by the accounting department. You know, so, you know, what kind of stuff, okay, now, Travis, you were talking about the purchasing people, and yeah, we've got all that out there, but, you know, realistically, what is the accounting department giving the finance director? What are they actually creating? Haley, what do you think the accounting department is giving to the finance director?
Like our financial statements, like the horizontal analysis, vertical analysis, and ratio analysis.
Yeah, well, those analysis are going to be done by the finance department. Realistically, the accounting department's going to create what the income statement, balance sheet, statement of changes in retained earnings, cash flow stuff, right? And what we're going to see is at the well, not the very beginning, but the first tool that we're really going to be worrying about is cash. Because let's talk about it from a very specific and real world point of view. When you're running your business, cash is the most important thing to keep track of. Yeah, profitability is great. We want to turn a profit, but I'm going to make a statement right now, and you're going to see this be created through the assignments and the examples and whatnot that we're going to go through in the various chapters, that cash flow and profitability are not related. There's not a direct relationship between cash flow and profitability. Okay, now I'll talk about various positions that I had out in the real world before I became a lawyer, because some of you know that I was in the business world before I decided to go back to law school. I was an accountant, I was an accounting manager, I was a controller, I was a treasurer, I was a executive vice president of a company, and it was very interesting for me to see, and I will tell you that I saw this all very much firsthand. The one company where I was the executive vice president was where I was able to see it the best, because I was at the top of the pyramid and everybody reported to me. But I could see that when we were very, very busy and just extraordinarily profitable, I mean obscenely profitable, we had no cash. We had zero cash. If I had cash, then that meant my operations were slowing down and that I was no longer making a profit. So dealing with profitability is one problem. Dealing with cash flow is an entirely different problem. Both of those problems belong to the finance people at the company. Okay? You need to make sure that the company stays profitable. If the company is not profitable, there is no long term for the company. Plain and simple. If it's constantly losing money, it's not going to stay in business. The other side of it is, even if you're profitable, if you don't have cash, then you can forget about staying in business also. Look at it in the short term. If I can't pay my bills, what's my opportunity or what's my chance of staying in business? Okay. Now look at it from this point of view. If you can't raise the cash to make payroll this week, how many people come back the next day? Especially in today's world where we have, these tremendous shortages of employees out there, right? So if I'm having cash flow problems and I go to my employees and say, hey, you know what, we're profitable and it's all thanks to you, and we can't even begin to tell you how appreciative we are of you. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to pay you this week. That's kind of that's kind of a mixed message to the employee, isn't it? I know that the company that I'm talking about, where I had so much responsibility, I know that if I didn't make payroll, I would not have employees the next week. Nobody would come back. I would have been out of business. If you need to buy raw materials and you don't have the ability to pay for the raw materials, you're out of business. If you don't have the money to pay the rent, you're out of business. Okay. You could be as profitable as anything, but if you don't have cash, you're out of business. Okay. So we're going to find what the tools are to project and how do we deal with those periods of time when we're not going to have cash. Okay. Let's just throw it out there. Okay. How do you get cash? Okay, I'm a profitable company, I'm growing, everything's going well, I have a cash flow problem. How do I stay in business? Emily, how do I stay in business then?
You said, how do you get the cash?
Yeah, how do you get the cash? I'm profitable, but I got no cash. My employees want to be paid, and my rent has to be paid.
Maybe you could cut maybe some unnecessary expenses that you have in order to free it up for, your employees and bills that you have.
Well, that would go more towards profitability than it would towards cash flow. Not a bad idea, I understand, but but we need cash. We need to be able to pay our bill.
Couldn't you just liquidate some of your assets that you may no longer use, or even the ones that you use less, you might have to liquidate to stay open short term?
Sure. And we're actually going to talk about that a little bit further into the semester. When we look at the balance sheet, how do we list the assets on the balance sheet? By liquidity, right? So if I have to raise cash, I'm going to be looking at the top of the balance sheet to see what I can sell. Yes, yeah, Evan, absolutely, we can sell assets. Is it a good idea though?
Probably. I mean, that's kind of like a last resort thing. If
Right.
you're not using it, then it's probably not like a terrible idea, but usually it's not your first option that
Right.
you want to run to.
If it was a planned thing, then I think it would be fine. We've got these pieces of equipment which are becoming obsolete. We've replaced them. We can sell them, and it won't affect our operations. And then what happens is you have the opportunity to sell them for the best price. If you're trying to raise cash to pay this week's payroll, and you're talking about selling an asset, then you're talking about a fire sale, aren't you? You're not going to get a whole lot of value for it. So it's a possibility. And, I know people that have done that, and it's not the first choice. You're right, Evan. It's not the optimal answer. The answer here is that, if we have a profitable company, we're probably going to be able to borrow money, right? And, one of the biggest tools, and I guess I'm sort of doing this is sort of the overture, if you will, for the semester. I'm sort of talking about different things that we're going to see through the semester. Working capital. Paying attention to your working capital is a very important part of the finance director's job. Working capital is inventory, receivables, cash. Basically the current assets, and manipulating, and that's a bad word, managing the working capital is a big, huge, important part of the finance director's job. So if we're profitable, then what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to go out and borrow money to get through the periods of cash shortage. Now, I make it sound like, oh, we're profitable and we're never going to have cash. That's not true. What you're going to see is cycles probably in your business, and we will very definitely look at companies going through business cycles and how it affects cash flow. But when you have a company that is in an expansion mode, a growth mode, that sucks up cash like nobody's business. When you go into a reduction mode, that creates cash like nobody's business. But what you want to see is the company growing and then maintaining that growth. You don't want to necessarily see a whole lot of negative cycling of the company. It happens. We do have business cycles, but let's assume we have a company that's in a growth mode. The growth mode is going to suck up the cash. You're going to have cash flow problems. But then what's eventually going to happen is that the timings will start equalizing, or you'll get sort of an equilibrium where the cash will start rolling in even though you're profitable. Okay, so your cash flow shortages, as long as you have a strong company that is actually profitable, the cash flow shortages are a timing issue. Okay, and you have to look at it, and we'll take a look at a business cycle. That's one of the other important things that we want to look at, is how long does it take your business to cycle its money? Okay, you've got it in cash. Okay, you buy raw materials. When do you pay for those materials? You get the materials in, you manufacture your product, you sell your product on credit to your customer, and then they eventually pay that bill through redeeming what's on your books as accounts receivable. What's the period of time there? Okay, that becomes a very interesting problem. That's another thing that a finance director can do, is try and find ways of reducing the amount of time that business cycle takes. So we can maybe we can delay when we pay our bills and accelerate when we receive or collect our invoices. Then that has a direct effect on cash flow. So it becomes one of those things where it's timing. And so the biggest tool that you have as the finance director is the ability to borrow in the short term. How long are you going to need help covering your current expenses? If you go into a bank and you say, hey, I need a loan. I need $100,000. Okay, why do you need $100,000? I'm having trouble paying my bills. All right, their ears perk up a little bit. No, why should we lend you money? No, don't get me wrong. We're not losing money. We're profitable. We're making money, but we have cash flow problems. Okay. They may want to lend you money because they know if you can prove to them you're profitable, and if you can forecast what your cash flow is going to look like. Okay, we're going to do a lot of forecasting in this class. We're going to take a look at that business cycle. We're going to see the cash that we start with. We're going to see the cash that goes out, much like Owen said at the beginning here. We're going to watch that cash go out of the company. We're going to watch the raw materials and the assets get accumulated into the company, but they're not cash. Then we're going to see the sales that occur to our customers. Once again, we're still not having cash. For the accountants, we've created a profit because we're doing the accrual method, but the finance director is going, yes, I'm happy that we're profitable, but I still need that cash because I need to keep the doors open. So go to the bank. We're profitable. We need to borrow money. Why? We have cash flow issues. It's a timing issue, not a profitability issue. We're going to need a $100,000 line of credit. That's the best way to do this. You don't borrow $100,000 and dump it into your checking account. You get a line of credit for $100,000, just picking a number. And then as you need the money because you have cash flow problems, you draw it out of that line of credit, only borrowing what you need. And when your cash flow starts going to the positive side, you pay down that line of credit. So it's a loan that you don't want to have any kind of long-term effect. I need to have access to it. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to make payroll this week. I need $10,000 in order to make payroll. You go into the line of credit, tell the bank you need $10,000. They throw it into your bank account. Payroll is processed. Your employees are happy. They have no idea that you had to borrow the money to pay them, but you stayed in business. The employees are happy. If it was a 1 week cash flow problem, then the next week you're collecting cash from your customers. You're swimming in cash now. You pay that loan back to the bank. How much did it really cost you to borrow that money? You're not paying, let's just say that you're paying 10%, which is an ungodly large amount of interest in today's environment. But let's say that you're paying 10% interest on that line of credit. Well, you borrow, I got a $100,000 line of credit and it's at 10% interest. Oh my God, I'm going to be paying $10,000 a year in interest. No, you're not. I borrowed $10,000 and kept it for a month, let's say. So I don't have a calculator in front of me, but it would be 10,000 times 0.1 times 1 divided by 11, because you would only pay 1 month's worth of rent and 1 month's worth of interest and only on the amount you borrowed. So you'd be paying a couple $100 in interest. Hey, that's a great way of doing business. You stayed in business, you covered your cash flow problems, but only because the bank was willing to give you the money. The only reason the bank was willing to give you the money is because they believed you had the ability to pay it back, and you did. You have to look good. So when you go to the bank and say, hey, I want to borrow money, you're going to have to go in there with some paperwork to make them know that you're a professional. Okay, well, why do you need the money? Well, we have cash flow problems. Why do you have cash flow problems? Well, it's all a timing issue because, you know, we have to pay our suppliers before we get paid from our customers. So we have to be able to cover that the cash flow problems, the expenditures during that period of time. You know, profitability will kick in, and eventually we'll start gathering cash in. So we'll be able to pay this off. The bank's going to want to know when you need the money. So you're going to have to do a forecast month to month, week to week, day to day. How sophisticated do you need to be? Okay. Now, I'll give you a tool that you'll be able to calculate your cash flow for the year. Here's our cash flow. At the beginning of the year, we're going to start with this amount of money. And at the end of the year, we're going to end with this amount of money. Oh, no, we have a cash flow problem. At the end of the year, we're going to be $5,000 overdrawn. Is that a tool? Is that a good tool? Well, it tells you something, but are you going to be able to run your business day to day? No, because you need to know in more smaller increments what kind of cash flow issues you're going to have. I need to know if I'm paying my my invoices and my payroll on a weekly basis, then I probably need to forecast my cash flow on a weekly basis. Certainly no less than monthly, right? Because, oh, I give you a tool that shows you that you're going to have a negative $5,000 in cash flow for this year, tremendous profits, let's say, but a negative $5,000 in cash flow. And you go to the bank and say, hey, I'm going to have access to a $5,000 line of credit. The bank says, sure. And they give you that $5,000. But what you don't realize that is in the midst of the low part of your business cycle, you're going to be $50,000 overdrawn. That $5,000 line of credit is useless to you. You're still going to go out of business. You need to know what the maximum amount of negative cash flow you're going to have so you can plan that and borrow the money from the bank at the appropriate time. Don't go into the bank the day before payroll. Oh, I need $10,000. I'm not going to make payroll. I guess you're not making payroll. You know, you should be able to forecast that months in advance. So that's what we're going to do in this class. What else? One of the other things that I think is interesting in this class is something called leveraging. Anybody have a definition for leverage or leveraging? Anybody want to take a shot at that? Okay, well, it comes from the word lever. And go back to grade school science. We had what are the 5 basic machines: the block and tackle, the screw, the inclined plane, the lever is one of those original tools. Well, a lever is used to help you get more for your effort than you put into it. Okay, so I've got a big rock in front of me and I need to have it moved. So what I do is I get a big rod, a big steel rod or branch or whatever, and I put it underneath the boulder, and then I put another rock a little bit behind that. Fulcrum is what I believe that was called. And then what happens is you end up pulling on the end of the lever a long distance, but it's only a short distance over here. So you, with less effort, can move more weight because you've leveraged that power, okay? In the financial world, we have leveraging also, okay? Now, leveraging is what is going to be the result on the back end if we make a financial decision today. If I decide to invest $10,000 in my business today, what is going to be the result down the road? And when we talk about leveraging, we're going to talk about one of them is operating leverage. Do I have high fixed costs or do I have high variable costs? Okay, now, you don't have to be an accountant to be in this class, but it sure helps, doesn't it? What are fixed costs and what are variable costs in a business? John, what do you think? What are fixed costs and what are variable costs? John's not there. Peyton, what do you think? What are fixed costs and variable costs?
Well, fixed costs would just be like rent and stuff that comes up monthly.
What's an example of that?
I mean, just rent is what I just said, but I'm not sure what another one would be.
Okay, rent is one. Depreciation per se?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, because we had to make the
constantly
decision.
writing it off and stuff. So
Yeah. And variable costs, what would be some examples of variable costs? Payroll?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that would just be like your costs depending on like how much you sell or.
Sure. How about payroll?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So if I'm not producing this week, I give everybody the week off. I don't have any payroll. But if I'm working hard, I'm going to have a higher payroll, right? Or
right.
even the raw materials that go into the product that I'm manufacturing. Those would be variable costs because once again, if I'm not manufacturing anything, I'm not using the steel to make my widgets. But if I am manufacturing, then I am using the steel. So the variable costs, they are directly related to the amount of activity that you have, right? Fixed costs, they're there whether you produce one widget or you produce 10,000 widgets this month, right? The variable costs are there. Rent, yes, absolutely. So I have to rent the building that my company is in. If I'm producing one widget this month, I still have to pay the rent. If I produce 10,000 widgets, I still have to pay that exact same rent. Fixed costs, they are not directly related to the number of items that we're producing or selling, whereas variable costs, there's going to be a more direct relationship between the number of items and the costs that we have that particular month. Okay, so leverage. Let's talk about leveraging. We have to make a decision as the finance people. Do we want to invest in technology? Okay, so you all know that I own the world's best widget making company, and I can make widgets like nobody's business. I make the world's greatest widgets in the world, and my machinery is starting to get older, and technology is changing. And other widget manufacturers, my competitors, they're out there buying up newer technology. And as a result, they can make their widgets a little bit faster. They can have fewer employees because theoretically, the more that you invest in technology and equipment, the less you invest in people. And I'm starting to get beat by my competitors. I'm not as efficient anymore. So I have to make the determination, do I want to invest in machinery? Do I want to invest in the technology? So if I invest in the technology, I'm going to end up putting, let's say, $500,000 into new equipment. And obviously, I'm going to have to finance that. I'm going to have the loans. I'm going to have interest or lease payments or something that's going to cost me money to have that equipment. I'm going to have depreciation costs that are going to affect my profitability because of that. But I'm going to have fewer employees because, see, with the new technology, I'm not going to need as many people. I'm not going to have one person per machine running that machine and using their skill to manipulate that machine to turn the raw material into the product. I'm going to have the machine doing most of the technical work, most of the more intricate work, and I'm going to have one employee that can but watch or maintain 4 or 5 machines that are manufacturing widgets, rather than having 4 or 5 people in, so I have one in front of each machine. So I'm going to have many fewer people, a lot less in payroll, but I'm going to have a lot more in lease payments, interest payments, and depreciation. Okay. And the question that I ask you is that a good decision? What do you think? just off the top of your head, is that a good decision? Lucas, what do you think? Is that a good decision?
I think it would be.
Okay. Most people would think that. Most people would think that. But the answer is never that clear. And what it will come down to, and this is, once again, this is the overture. I'm sort of doing an overview of the course. What we'll have to do is we'll have to start making some forecasts and some projections. And leverage is one of the things that's going to come into this. So we'll be considered to be aggressively or highly leveraged if we do what I just suggested: buy a whole bunch of machinery and invest in the technology, have higher fixed costs, but lower variable costs, because I'll be able to get rid of the payroll, right? Okay. If we're in an economy where growth is going to be expected, being highly leveraged would be the great idea, because we're going to be able to if we have higher fixed costs, our break-even number is going to be much higher. And then our profitability is going to be everything above that break-even. Okay. Now, if we're very highly leveraged, then we're going to end up with massive profitability above our break-even point. However, if we're going into an economy which is going to be slow, where we're not going to have tremendous acceleration or growth, we may have a stagnant where we don't have any growth, or maybe even have some reduction or losses in our business, then having massive fixed costs means that our break-even point is a very high number. And so we may end up with huge losses if we're in an economy where we can't get to our break-even point. Okay. Now, let's assume that we decided, no, we're afraid to invest in the new technology because we don't know what the economy is going to do. We're a very, very conservative company. We're not willing to take those risks. So we don't invest in the new technology, but we have that boom economy. So we're going to have a lower break even, and anything above break even is going to be profit, right? But if we're not leveraged, we're going to have to hire a lot of variable costs, a lot of new employees to make that massive amount of product to sell it. So yes, we're going to be profitable above break even, and that's going to be a lower number. But when we do the charts later, you'll see that the difference between profit and loss, when we're highly leveraged above break even, it becomes this massive amount of profit, where the chart is very narrow. If we're not highly leveraged, we'll be profitable, but we won't get as much of a bang for our buck. So if we're highly leveraged and we have a good economy, let's say that we invest $10,000 in new equipment, on the back end, we could see $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of profit come from that investment. Could end up being loss if we don't have the numbers. If we don't make the investment, then a $10,000 change down here would only have, say, a $12,000 change above break even. So leveraging and deciding, trying to figure out, should we invest in equipment or not? Another type of leverage beyond operating leverage is financial leverage. Okay. Now, the easiest way to picture financial leverage is with life insurance. Now, this isn't an insurance class, but if I wanted to buy $1 million life insurance policy, is it going to cost me $1 million? Let's say I wanted to go out right now and buy a single premium life insurance policy for $1 million, meaning I only pay the insurance company one payment and then I get $1 million when I die? Owen?
I don't think so.
What's that?
I don't think so. I
You
don't think you pay
Go ahead.
$1 million for a $1 million life insurance.
Absolutely. Why would you do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Why
crazy.
would you do it?
Yeah, why would you do it? So yeah, I'm an old guy, so it would be expensive for me to go out and buy $1 million life insurance policy. But you guys are young. If you wanted to go out and buy a single premium $1 million life insurance policy on any of you right now, it would probably cost in the range of around $50,000 to $60,000. It's a lot of money. I understand that. We're not talking chump change here, but your $50,000 investment would leverage into $1 million payout. That is one of the biggest leverages you're ever going to see anywhere in the financial world, life insurance. That's how it works. Okay. Now the insurance company, they're not stupid. They're making money through a variety of ways. Next semester, take my insurance class. No, next semester, a year from now. But we can do that in the business world too. How we finance our company determines our financial leverage. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you guys this question. If operating leverage was, do I invest in technology and increase my fixed cost versus my variable costs, what do you think we're going to be comparing if we're talking about financial leverage? What would be the two things that we have to choose between? Anybody? Connor, what do you think?
Are you saying in reference, so we had to pick between variable and fixed costs for the operating leverage. So what you're saying, what would be the financial?
Yep, for financial leverage, yeah. So there's got to be two things we get to choose between.
I think. Is it another type of cost? A different type of cost?
No, it's not costs, actually. That's the interesting issue. That's okay. It's an unfair question. I haven't given you any of the answers yet, but no, it's how we finance our company. Okay. And so when we finance the company, what are the two choices as to how we raise money? Debt or equity? See, do we raise the money that we need by borrowing it, or do we raise the money by selling off equity in the company? Which is cheaper? Once again, I hate to tell you this, but that's another unfair question. The belief is that equity is the most expensive money that you will ever borrow or raise. Okay. When you borrow money, I'm going to just assume you're borrowing it from a bank and not a loan shark. When you borrow money, you have to pay it back. So if I go out and I borrow $100,000, at some point I have to pay that $100,000 back plus interest. Now, just as an example, let's say I need $100,000 and I think I'm going to need it for a year, and the best rate that I can get is 10%. I'll borrow the $100,000, and a year from now, I have to pay back $110,000. So the cost to raise that money was $10,000. Oh, that's expensive. Is it? Let's say that I go on Shark Tank and I need to raise $10,000. Anybody in the group here watch Shark Tank? Somebody volunteer. Connor, you watch Shark Tank?
I watched it a couple of times.
Okay. When somebody brings a product to them and wants them to invest money, what do they want?
Are you referring to the actual the host, or are you talking about the person themselves? Because the person themselves,
the sharks. What do the sharks want for the money?
They want a percentage of the company, percentage of the equity.
Yeah, they want a percentage of equity. Okay, so I go to Shark Tank and I say I need $100,000 to get new manufacturing equipment so I can bring this to scale, and I could be a player in the market. And they say, great, we'll give you the $100,000, but we want 25% equity in your company. Is that more than the $10,000 that I would have paid interest? Oh my God, yes. If I end up, turning the company into a $1 billion company or into $1 million company, that 25% is worth $250,000, isn't it? How much money did I give them? Think about it. Equity is very expensive. Now, it may be the only way you can get money. It may be the way you want to do it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it can be kind of expensive. All right, so let's go back to financial leveraging. Financial leveraging is, how do we raise that money? Do we raise it by selling equity, or do we raise it by borrowing money? Yeah. Is there an absolute right or wrong answer here? No. It depends on the circumstances. Just like in operational leverage, if we knew what the future was going to be, hey, it's going to be a really great economy going forward, then we should probably leverage like crazy, because we'll end up with massive profits above break even. If we know that it's going to be a crappy economy going forward, then we should not have fixed costs. We should be relying more on variable costs, because we can reduce our costs. Our break even will be much lower. We'll make profit, but we're not going to be, everybody's darling on Wall Street. Same thing with financing your company. If I think the future is going to be absolutely wonderful and rosy, borrow the money. Because if I need that $100,000 and it's going to cost me $10,000 in interest, and I'm going to have a wonderful year and I'm going to make that money back, no problem, that $10,000 is cheap. Versus if I think it's going to be a really great economy going forward and we're going to do absolutely great, if I give you 25% of my company, that's way more than the $10,000 cost of the interest. Okay. But so that's leveraging your company, is how much debt do you use? If I decide that I need to raise some money, but I'm not real certain about the future, I don't know that my plan is going to work absolutely perfectly, and I may not be able to increase my sales the way that I think I'm going to increase my sales. I may not be able to make the payments to the bank, and then the bank is going to shut me down. They're going to repossess. They're going to foreclose on my loans. I go out of business because I couldn't pay the bank. Maybe selling stock to somebody is a better idea, because I don't have deadlines. I don't have to repay what the person paid to buy the common stock from me. Okay, so I'm not highly leveraged, and if the economy goes into the tank, I don't lose my business. Okay, it's the same thing, it's the same idea as between, do I create huge fixed costs by having a lot of new machinery, or do I create fixed costs because I have to make loan payments? That's leveraging. And what you'll see is, if you highly leverage, if things work out well, then you're going to get multiples back on the back end. A $1 movement at the bottom side of this can be a $100 movement on the other side of break even. Okay. But like I said, you have a higher break even, or you have higher fixed costs that you have to hit, or you have interest and principal payments that you have to make. Okay.
I had a quick question.
Sure, Connor.
I don't know, this might be slightly off topic, but with the Shark Tank example, how they might ask for like 25%.
Sure.
In the company. On average, you might not know this answer, but on average, for when companies actually do like stocks for owner shares of their company, how much percentage is that on average, would you say?
It's an interesting question, and it really depends on how you go through that process. The Shark Tank example is one way of raising money. And that would be more in what we refer to as the venture capital side of financing, where you're going to have either one person or a small group of investors that will come forward and say, hey, we've got money to invest and we like your business plan or we like your product. And here's $1 million that we're willing to put into your company, and we just want an equity position in exchange for that. It's really, really tempting. But in my mind, what happens is you end up giving up a much larger percentage of ownership than you really want to. Okay. What the percentage would be, I really couldn't tell you, but if you think about it in terms of, think of it like this. So you started the company, you started it in your garage, and, you started it with $10,000 of your savings, and, you've been working 10 years where you've just been pouring your blood and sweat into this company and barely taking back any salary and just plowing all of the profits back into the company. And now you're in, a nice industrial park, and you've bought better equipment, and you're starting to make money, but you're a small company, but you see that if you had the proper financing, you could be a big company. And then you go to one of these venture capital groups and they say, you need $1 million to build a better plant so that you can triple your output. Sure, no problem. But we want 56, 70% of the business to do that. And those numbers are not ridiculous. I've seen that. What you end up having to answer the question to yourself is 30% of that much larger company better than 100% of the much smaller company? And you really have to do the calculation for yourself as far as, projecting what you think is going to happen if you take that $1 million investment from the venture capitalists. Because that 30% may be a massive number if the company, becomes extraordinarily successful. The venture capitalists are generally not interested in investing in companies that aren't going to get profitable. But the other thing that will generally happen is with them having that 50, 60, 70% ownership, they're in control of the company, and eventually they will remove you. So that's the other side of this. If you really like the fact that you created Apple, Steve Jobs, Apple. He started it with Wozniak in their garage, and they built it up to a massive company. Then they went public, and eventually the shareholders and the board of directors got tired of Steve Jobs, and they removed him. Those are the things that happen if you go that route. It depends what your goals are. Is your goal that you want to be in charge of that company and you love the power and you love the excitement of running the company? Then maybe you might want to stay small and keep the control and keep all the risk to yourself, but you're not going to cash out. If your goal is to make as much money as possible, then taking in those investors and then eventually being pushed out and being bought out for millions and millions and millions of dollars, not a bad thing, right? So I don't know if I answered your question there, Connor, but
yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. But yeah, to me, I guess it's an ego thing with me. But if I were to build a company and then I was going to be pushed out, I would be very, very perturbed. But that's generally what happens. The other side of it is the you could theoretically try to take your company public as opposed to going and getting venture capital. You can try for an initial public offering where you've grown to a certain point and now you want to try and raise money on the actual stock markets out there instead of just private money. You could do that. You would end up owning a much smaller portion of the company again, because you'd end up giving a big chunk to these other shareholders that are buying. But in theory, you don't have any concentration in any particular one person or group. So you have the possibility of hanging on to control for a period of time, raising ungodly amounts of money in an initial public offering and still maintaining your control of the company. And that's another way, once again, of making ungodly amounts of money. If the company becomes successful, then you have all this stock from beginning the company, and now it has a market out on the stock market, and you become, rich beyond your wildest dreams. Is it your goal to stay and run the company, or is it your goal to go and sit under a palm tree like I have? Don't know. Everybody's different.
One additional question on top of that. Now you mentioned the stock market.
Yeah.
For companies that are just going public, what is like a normal amount, like a percentage of ownership, do they give out for stocks? And then just starting.
In the company's initial public offering, I don't know. That's a tough question, Connor. I'm not really sure. I was involved with a company that tried to go public, and it failed miserably. The company ended up, I don't even believe they're in business anymore, to be honest with you. I'm trying to remember. I believe that the ownership group was trying to hang on to about 40% of the ownership. So they were trying to sell in the IPO basically 60% of the company. And I can't remember how many tens of millions of dollars they were trying to raise. We're talking back 1999 at this point. So that's a few years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we're at 10:42. Class ends at 10:50. I don't have to run to 10:50. Does anybody have any, that was, like I said, I sort of wanted to do that as an overture. You got a little bit of taste of a lot of the different things we're going to see this semester. Another one of the things that's going to be, and I guess I'll end with this as the last concept that we'll be looking at this semester. So I talked about, we'll be doing forecasting. We'll be doing pro forma financial statements, forecasting financial statements into the future. We'll be doing leveraging. The other thing that we'll be doing is we'll be doing a lot of calculations based on present value. You may or may not have been exposed to present value. I remember when I was an undergraduate business student, I think I was exposed to present value for the first time in my principles of accounting class, but I don't know if that's still done that way today. But what we have is this concept of present value. $1 today is not worth the same as $1 10 years from now. Okay. The time value of money changes. And obviously money that you have in hand right now is worth more than money that you'll get in the future. So if I were to ask you, would you rather have $1 today or $1 January 18th, 2032, you should say you'd rather have the $1 today. Why? Because that $1 that I gave you today, you could theoretically invest that, right? If you took that $1 and put it into some account that was paying 5% interest, we could calculate out what that would be worth 10 years from now. It would be worth more than $1. Okay. So $1 today is not the equivalent of $1 at any other time in history. Okay. And one of the things we have to take into account is basically, the book talks about the rate of return, but realistically, we're talking about inflation. What's the value of inflation? Because $1 loses value as we move into the future because prices change. $1 loses value as we move into the future because we could have invested it today and it would be worth more tomorrow. That $1 today could be worth $1.50 10 years from now. So you don't want to take $1 10 years from now. You want to take $1 today. We're going to do a lot of calculations on present value because when you make a decision, okay, oh, do I invest $10,000 in this machine? Well, what's it going to do? Well, it's going to improve my my efficiency, and it's going to reduce costs by $2,000 a year for the next 6 years. Okay, so if I invest $10,000, I'm going to get the benefit of $12,000 spread over the next, 6 years. Is it worth making that investment? Well, if you just look at invest 10, get back 12, yes, we should make that investment. But it's not that simple because the $10,000 this year, maybe it's worth $10,000, but $2,000, but the $2,000 next year is not worth $2,000 because that's a year in the future. The $2,000 2 years from now is not worth the $2,000 because it's 2 years in the future, and so on until you get to calculating the value of the $2,000 that you get 6 years from now. What's that going to be worth? Well, it's going to be worth around $1,500. So what's going to happen is you're going to see that you have to make your decisions based not only on actual dollar amounts, but on where they occur in time. Because, hey, I can spend $10,000 today and get $12,000 back 10 years from now. That's probably not a good deal. You probably don't want to do that. But I'm making $2,000. Yeah, but you could have made more. Okay, so we're going to do time value of money, present value. We're going to do that for actual dollar amounts. We're going to go forward in time. We're going to go backward in time. And then we're going to play with annuities. An annuity is a stream of money, a regular occurrence that happens on a regular basis, either yearly or monthly or some period of time where you receive or pay money on a regular basis. And we're going to evaluate that in a stream of time, so we can make important decisions based on what's it worth today, what's it worth 10 years from now, or what's it worth over a stream of time. So it's complicated. It's a lot of math. By the way, if you took this course, this is a math course. Okay, it's going to be a lot of business concepts. It's going to be a lot of accounting concepts, and it's going to be a lot of math. It's going to be fun. The math is not that hard. I'm a lawyer, for God's sake. How much math can I do? And I can do this. So any questions before I let you go for the day? If not, remember, this is continuing. So the invitation you had for today will be the same invitation for Thursday's class, and we will stay remote until I tell you otherwise, okay? If you need anything from me, just send me an email. I'll check my emails a couple times a day, and I will do my darndest to get back to you. So hope everybody makes it into campus safe and stays warm. Okay, we'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you.
Professor Kowalczyk, I have a question about the textbook.
Sure.
Is there a difference, or rather, because it can come in a loose leaf format?
Okay.
Do I need the loose leaf format for like worksheets or anything, or you're just using it for text?
No, just using it for a text. There's
Okay.
a lot of charts and problems in there, and so that's really what we're going to be using it for. You won't be tearing anything out and handing anything in. The textbook is the textbook. If you can get a used one, get a used one.
Okay. Here's my other question. Is there a major difference between the 16th edition and the 17th edition?
There's a difference, but it's not a significant difference. And I've actually I've made some adjustments. When I've been teaching this course for 7 years now, 8 years, and I did use that other book, and they made me use the newer book. I used to do the course based on when we get to the present value and the annuity values. There are charts in the back of the book that give you multipliers and formulas to use to do that. They're in the new book and the old book, but the old book relies on that pretty extensively. The new book, they give you the charts and they tell you, yeah, this is out there and you can do it, but nobody does that anymore. Let me show you how to do it using Excel.
Okay.
So the new book has more of that type of instruction. And when we get to that, I will be using the Excel side of it. So that's really the only section where there's a huge problem.
Okay. So
now, that being said, there is one other problem that, and I hate the way the publishers do this. One of the big things that they do is they change the questions at the end of the chapter. And I tend to not create whole new questions. I tend to say, at the end of chapter 2, let's do numbers, question numbers 2, 6, and 8 or something like that. You have to make sure that you check your question against somebody with a current book.
Okay. Well, I asked because I was trying to get the book and I was like, I have so many choices.
Yeah.
And to rent is, depending on what kind of book it was, would have been, so like the hardcover to rent is about the same as renting an e-textbook. The 16th edition would be obviously much, much more cheaper than the 17th edition.
Sure.
So I was like, which one do I pick? It's that you get paralyzed by the choice. So I wasn't too sure which to go.
Yeah. It won't matter that much, you know. Like I said, the biggest issue will be the inconvenience of making sure that the question that you're answering is the question I asked.
Okay. Well, to save everyone the trouble, I will go with the 17th edition.
It'll save you a little bit of grief, yeah.
All right. Sounds good, Professor Kamalchak.
All right. We'll see you on Thursday.
I will see you Thursday.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.